called on Tuesday for a world political authority, a new world order. He's calling for world government to manage the global economy and for government regulation of national economies to put the world out of the current crisis, or to pull the world out of the current crisis and to avoid a repeat. The Pope made his call for a rethink of the way the world economy was run in a new encyclical. Now, an encyclical is where the Pope gets his infallibility. That's the main instrument for infallibility. And so this new encyclical, which touched on a number of social issues, but whose main connecting thread was how the current crisis had affected both rich and poor nations. Parts of the encyclical, titled Charity and Truth, seemed bound to upset many free marketers because of its underlying rejection of unbridled capitalism and unregulated market forces, which he said led to, quote, thoroughly destructive abuse of the system and grave deviations and failures. An encyclical, says Reuters, is the highest form of papal writing and gives the clearest indication to the world's 1.1 billion Catholics and to non-Catholics of what the Pope and the Vatican think about specific social and moral issues. The Pope said every economic decision had a moral consequence and called for forms of redistribution of wealth, overseen by governments to help those most affected by the crisis. Pope Benedict said, quote, there is an urgent need of a true world political authority whose task would be to manage the global economy, to revive the economies hit by the crisis, to avoid any deterioration of the present crisis and the greater imbalances that would result. End of quote. Now, Reuters says such an authority would have to be regulated by law, quoting the Pope, and would need to be universally recognized and to be vested with all of the effective power to ensure security for all, regard for justice, and respect for rights. That's a quote from the Pope. The Pope also said, obviously, it would have to have the authority to ensure compliance with its decisions. In other words, it would have to have sovereignty. It's a world government. And also with the coordinated measures adopted in various international forums. The United Nations, economic institutions, and international finance all had to be reformed, even in the midst of a global recession, he said in the encyclical, a booklet of 141 pages. The Pope's call for a supranational body to tackle global economic woes disturbed even some Catholic capitalists. In fact, one, Frank Keating, former governor of Oklahoma, who is a Catholic, said, there is a difference between coordination and mandate. A reckless loan in the United States can and did impoverish people in Latvia. So obviously, coordination is important as long as it is not mandates, said Frank Keating, CEO of, it's the American Council of Life Insurers and former governor of Oklahoma. The encyclical was addressed to all Catholics and all people of goodwill and was released on the eve of the start of the G8 summit in Italy and 3 days before the Pope was due to discuss the global downturn with U.S. President Barack Obama. So now we know when this encyclical came out at the time it did, the Pope wants his little part to say and what the G8 is trying to do to bring about the new world order. Well, problems in Israel, Al-Qaeda being trained in Gaza by the Hamas and financed, caught in Egypt and now going to be put on trial. And we do nothing about the Palestinians. It's those mean old Jews that are trying to do everything. And the Pope, of all people, are calling for a new world order. Revelation chapter 13 says, and I stood on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. It goes on to describe it. It's a world government, a beast, rising up out of the sea of nations, the old Leviathan, called out of the sea of nations by the dragon, the old red dragon, who is cast out of heaven. So, everything is moving in the direction. All we need now is for sovereignty to be given to the United Nations, and we'll have the bureaucracy ready for world government and the tribulation period. The Antichrist must not be far behind. I'm J.R. Church. We'll see you again tomorrow with our analysis of the news.